You've seen them all over New York, right? From government buildings up in Albany to university libraries right in Manhattan. These concrete giants, they are impossible to miss, but they do way more than just dominate a skyline. We're going to dive into how this style, brutalism, was actually a radical experiment in social engineering, and why, even today, it makes people feel so much.
Seriously, have you ever walked down the street and just gotten this feeling like a building is watching you? It's this cold, heavy presence from a massive concrete structure, with those deep-set windows and imposing shapes. It can make you feel kind of small, exposed, almost judged. Well, get this, that feeling is no accident. It's part of the design.
Wow, just listen to that phrase, to crush the human psyche under their uncompromising mass. That really gets to the heart of that feeling, doesn't it? The idea that a building itself could have such a powerful, almost violent effect on your mind is staggering. So how on earth did buildings meant for the public good end up getting described like this?
Okay, first up, let's just dig right into that feeling, the oppressive weight of it all. We're going to confront this sense of unease that seems like it was literally engineered right into the stone.
Look, it's a familiar feeling for anyone who stood at the base of one of these towering gray grids. You just feel tiny, dwarfed, maybe even a little isolated. It's a physical presence that has a very, very real psychological kick. But was that what they were going for? Was that really the plan?
Well, here's the big twist. This architectural style wasn't born from a desire to intimidate people. Not at all. In fact, its origin story is rooted in the exact opposite. This huge, powerful wave of civic optimism after the war.
And let's get one thing straight. The name brutalism is super misleading. It has absolutely nothing to do with being brutal. It actually comes from the French term béton brut, which just means raw concrete. The whole idea was about being honest, letting the material itself be the final look. No paint, no fancy facades, no pretending. What you see is what you get.
So you can really see the wild journey this style has been on. It kicked off after the war, in an era just bursting with optimism. Architects genuinely believed they could build a better, fair society from the ground up, and they cast those utopian ideals in concrete. And yet, here we are today, where the legacy is often, well, urban isolation. That's a profound shift in how we see these things. Now, this utopian vision, it led to a really radical ambition. This wasn't just about putting up new buildings, it was about actively trying to shape human behavior. This is the whole idea of social engineering through architecture. And I mean, the ambition here was just enormous. The goal was to use the physical environment to dictate social patterns, and even, get this, shape our mental rhythm. Just think about that for a second. The architects wanted to use buildings to guide where you walked, who you met, and how you felt as part of a bigger community. That is social engineering in action. So how did they try to pull this off? Their method was super deliberate. First, using raw concrete. That was a political statement. It was honest, affordable, not fancy, a material for the people, not the elites. Second, they designed for the group, for the collective. Spaces like big open plazas, elevated walkways, they were all meant to push people out of their private bubbles and into public life. And third, the sheer mass and shape of the buildings were used to channel people, creating pathways and meeting spots to encourage specific kinds of interaction.
And this leads us right to the heart of the conflict with brutalism. Did this grand experiment actually create an ordered communal society, or did it just create a landscape of, well, psychological despair?
And here you can see the two totally different outcomes, side by side. The intention was all about communal discipline, creating a society that felt ordered and unified by its strong, honest buildings. But the common perception ended up being urban isolation, the feeling of a person's psyche just getting crushed by that same uncompromising environment.
Let's dive a little deeper into that utopian side. The idea was that these clear, powerful forms would bring order to the chaos of city life. They were meant to encourage a shared public life, pulling people into common areas to build a unified civic identity. This was supposed to be a vision of collective strength, built from materials that screamed integrity and permanence.
But the reality for so many people was completely different. That uncompromising mass didn't feel strong, it just felt oppressive. The massive scale wasn't inspiring. It felt inhuman, alienating, making you feel totally insignificant. And instead of creating community, those huge empty spaces often just made people feel more alone. All those orderly grids meant to create harmony instead just felt relentlessly, soul-crushingly monotonous.
So, all of this brings us to their heavy legacy. After all these decades standing in our cities, what do these concrete monoliths really mean to us today as we live and work in their shadow?
I mean, we're talking more than 70 years. These concrete giants have been fixtures in our cities for a long, long time. They're not just relics of the past. They are active, breathing parts of our world, shaping our skylines, directing our footsteps, and, whether we realize it or not, influencing our moods every single day.
Ultimately, the key thing to remember here is that these buildings are so much more than just architecture. They are monuments. They're the physical evidence of a grand, idealistic, and deeply controversial experiment in using design to engineer a better society.
And so, we're left with a final question. The next time you walk past one of these concrete giants, what are you going to see? A monument to a failed utopia, or a complex challenge, a powerful mix of civic idealism and psychological weight that we are still, all these years later, just trying to fully understand?